Hello, welcome to Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. In this video, I'm going to help you write your army lists for Age of Sigmar 4. It's true, it's always been difficult to write army lists, especially if you're new to wargaming, or even when a new edition comes around, or if you've taken a little bit of a break. So this video is meant to be a step-by-step guide to explain everything that you need to do to build your army, and everything you need to take in order to make your army list complete for Age of Sigmar 4. Of course, if you've got any questions, do leave them in the comments below, and I will get to them and try to answer everything to help you write your army lists. In this video, I'm mainly just going to focus on 2,000 point match play games because that is effectively the Age of Sigmar standard. But pretty much everything I'm going to cover in this video is going to apply to smaller points games as well. For those who don't want to look through this entire video, let's quickly go through everything you need to do. First, you pick a faction and you gain those battle traits. Choose a battle formation and note it down. Choose a hero to be your general and build regiments led by heroes. Take up to 1 regiment of renown in your army list. Take as many auxiliaries as you want. If you have less auxiliaries than your opponent, you receive an additional command point each battle round. And of course, add your faction terrain to your list because it's free. Next, choose 1 enhancement from each enhancement table available to your faction. Pick 1 spell lore for your faction if you can. Pick 1 prayer lore for your faction if you can, and choose 1 manifestation lore if available for your faction. That's a lot of information, so let's break it down section by section. The first thing you need to know if you're writing an army list is all units in Age of Sigmar cost points. Those points at launch of Age of Sigmar 4 will be found online. Later on, they'll be found in your battle tomes, and then they'll be updated digitally in balance patches, which you'll be able to find on warhammercommunity.com. There's also an Age of Sigmar app, and it's been pretty good at keeping the points up to date. So it's also a good resource, as well as obviously Warhapedia. Because we're playing 2,000 points, we want to take a bunch of units up to that points value. However, some units are kind of oddly costed, and when you finally put your list together, you might see that you're at something like 1,970 points or 1,930 points. Previously in Age of Sigmar, you would be able to buy endless spells, and this would be able to make up for that shortfall in points, unless you didn't have wizards. However, that isn't available in Age of Sigmar 4, and there is a new mechanic called underspending. So with our points limit being 2,000 points, if we spend 1,950 or less points, then we're going to gain access to an extra command point at the start of the first battle round. Command points are a resource that you use to do powerful command abilities across the course of the game. And there might genuinely be a tactic in intentionally being below 1,950 points, just so you get that extra command point at the start of your match. So now we know the points limit for our match, and we know that we can get an extra command point in the first round. It's time to choose our faction. Once you choose a faction, you gain access to its unique battle traits. Battle traits are a thematic set of rules that explain how your army is going to work. In our example list, I'm going to be choosing Lumineth Realm Lords. Annoyingly, this is where we also need to talk about something called Armies of Renown. An Army of Renown is like a hyper-specialized faction inside of an already existing faction. Groups like Gits, as an example, in Age of Sigmar 3, got Trug's Trogherd. This was a special Troggoth-based army, which was specific and only able to take Troggoths and also Trug. If you do choose an Army of Renown, then your battle traits are going to be replaced with the battle traits of the Army of Renown. But this is the last time we're going to talk about Armies of Renown for now, because we're going to just focus on making normal army lists. So we've chosen our points value, we've also chosen our army. It's now time to choose our battle formation. At the launch of Age of Sigmar 4, each army will gain access to 4 different battle formations. You can only choose 1 battle formation for your army, and it's going to apply certain specific buffs. An example of this is Daughters of Cain gaining access to the Scath Coven battle formation, which benefits Meliusai and also Canary units. One of Disciples of Tzeentch's battle formations is the Weird Flame Host, which increases the benefits of their burning special rule. These battle formations are definitely going to dictate which units you're going to take, because you're going to want the buffs from the battle formations to affect your units. In the battle formation section, if it does say it affects certain units, like the one that we're going to choose, the Alarith Temple, then that's going to tie in with a keyword, and all keywords for different units can be found at the bottom of their war scroll. So now we've chosen the best battle formation that we can choose, we are going to add some units to our army. Units that you take in your army are put into regiments. There are between 1 and 5 regiments in an Age of Sigmar list. Each regiment is led by a hero, and that regiment can have 0 to 3 additional units in its regiment. Now, you can't just take any old unit in a hero's regiment. A hero's battle profile will tell you which units you can put inside of its regiment. This means you're going to need certain heroes to be able to take certain units inside of a regiment. The battle profiles of some heroes, such as named characters, may say that they can be added to a regiment of another hero. So you could easily have a regiment of heroes led by a hero. Either way, you must pick one hero to be your general. If any of the units in your army have the War Master keyword, that means that that unit has to be your general. If you have multiple units with a War Master keyword, then you need to choose one of those 2 War Masters to be your general. Your general's regiment will be able to have 0 to 4 units in it, compared to a normal regiment, which can only have 0 to 3 units. When you add a unit to your army roster or to a regiment, then that unit can be reinforced. Basically, this means a unit doubles in size and it also doubles the points cost. If I have a unit of 10 dudes and they cost 100 points, well, I can have a unit of 20 dudes that cost 200 points. There are positives and negatives to reinforcing a unit. If I cast a spell on a unit that's been reinforced, then I affect more models and therefore more attacks, and therefore it's just better economy. However, this literally puts all of my eggs into one basket, and if that unit gets focused down and murdered, then I lose a lot more points. If a unit has a minimum size of 1, it cannot be reinforced. The size of units normally correlates to what you can buy in a box from Games Workshop. So again, if you buy a unit of 10 steel helms, then the unit size will be a unit of 10. However, the easiest way to find out what unit size your units are is to look at the battle profiles, which you'll be able to find on the online PDFs. Some units will have the keyword unique located at the bottom of their war scroll. You can't have more than 1 unique unit in your army list, which just doesn't seem fair. I mean, double Nagash is obviously very cool, and we should definitely have that. In addition to creating your own regiments and filling up your own regiment slots, you can take a regiment of renown. Only one of your regiments can be a regiment of renown, and very much like the armies of renown, regiments of renown are pre-built regiments with their own special rules. The rules for each regiment of renown will specify which factions they can be taken in, and a unit in a regiment of renown cannot be the general even if it has the War Master keyword. Regiments of renown are like thematic, specific slices of the lore where you're able to take them in different armies. We saw them all across Age of Sigmar 3, and I would be surprised if across all of Age of Sigmar 4 we see lots of box sets which will be usable as regiments of renown and plug and playable in different factions. Some units won't be able to fit inside your regiments, either because you've filled your regiments up, which is probably unlikely, or because you don't have a hero to lead those certain units. In which case, these units are going to become auxiliary units, which you'll write down on your army list. You can have any number of auxiliary units, however, there is a downside to having too many or even any at all. When you go to play your game, you and your opponent will discuss who has the most auxiliary units. The player with the least auxiliary units is going to get an extra command point each battle round. Command points are a massive resource, and an additional 1 over the course of each battle round could be highly influential to a game. That said, some auxiliary units might be good enough and worth taking outside of regiments. We'll just have to see how the game evolves. Some heroes will have compulsory regiment options, and they will not be able to be taken as auxiliary units. Let's quickly talk about regiments and also talk about deployment. Every regiment in your army is what we call unified, which means when you come to deploying, you'll deploy every unit in your regiment at the same time. This is pretty interesting because this ties into a pretty core fundamental feature of how Age of Sigmar games play out. If I have 3 battle regiments and you have 5 battle regiments, then no matter in which order we deploy those battle regiments, I'll always finish deploying my army before you finish deploying your army. Whoever finishes deploying their army first in Age of Sigmar 4 is going to get the choice on who gets to go first. Therefore, you probably always want less battle regiments. This is going to be a really interesting mechanic for building your army list. Your general's regiment is going to be able to have the most units inside of it, but is the general that you've chosen going to be able to unlock the units that you want to take? Are you going to need to take another hero to unlock those specific units? This is all going to be really interesting as the game develops. But that's just something to be conscious of for now, that you're probably going to want fewer regiments more than more regiments, and you definitely don't want as many auxiliaries because those are going to add to your deployments and probably mean you don't get the choice to go first. Lastly, you should note down on your army list your faction terrain. You can pick 1 faction terrain feature to include in your army roster for free. They cost 0 points to take. While faction terrain is free in points, it definitely has such a massive in-game effect that you're almost always going to want to bring it with you to the battlefield. Gnaw holes for Skaven, as an example, are going to be able to help you deploy and teleport units, as well as return slain models. The same is true for the Gloomspite Gitz Loon Shrine. In fact, all faction terrain has got rules hard baked into them that mean they effectively are a core element of your army, and you can't really leave home without them. Faction terrain also has a health pool in Age of Sigmar 4 and is destroyable, so it's going to be something you also want to protect. We'll cover this much more in later videos, but I just thought it was worth pointing out for now that if you thought maybe I don't have to get some faction terrain, you probably need to, because the rules on it are super important for how your army works. The next thing that we're going to need to put on our army list are the enhancements that we've chosen. Each set of faction rules have a number of enhancement tables. In your army list, you can take one free enhancement from each of the enhancement tables located in your army rules. Each enhancement table lists which units are eligible to take those enhancements. They can be things such as heroic traits, mount traits, and artifacts of power. Units with the unique keyword won't be able to take enhancements. An example is the Sons of Behemoth enhancement table. They have 6 artifacts of power, which can only be taken by heroes. So when you write your army list, you'd be able to take one of these enhancements for free. Your faction rules will note which enhancement tables you have, and then just pick one each for free. Pretty nice. Some abilities are going to allow you to take extra enhancements. A unit can never have more than one enhancement of the same type, and your army can never include more than one of the same enhancement. The next thing you need to do, if you can, is choose a spell lore for your army. Most armies will have access to a spell lore. In our Lumineth example, we have access to multiple spell lores, but we have chosen the Lore of Heesh. This spell lore contains 3 different spells, and each wizard in our army will be able to cast any one of those 3 spells. This means that all wizards in our army know all 3 of those spells, as well as any spells located on their war scroll. We're going to do a whole video about spells and casting and power levels and all those things in the future, but this just means that you no longer need to write the specific spell for your wizard down on your army list, and instead you just write the spell lore that you're choosing. All these rules apply exactly also for a prayer lore. If your army has access to a prayer lore, then you choose which prayer lore you're going to choose, and all priests in your army know all of the prayers located on that prayer lore. You can also pick one manifestation lore for your army. This is separate to your spell lore. This is going to allow you to either summon endless spells or be able to bring up manifestations. When you choose a manifestation lore, all wizards or priests in your army will know all of the ways in which to summon either the spells or manifestations. What is a manifestation lore? That's a great question. Endless spells are physical representations of magic, or they're physical representations of prayers that have been summoned to the battlefield. These physical representations of magic on the battlefield have been collected into different manifestation lores and groups, as well as there being a variety of different manifestation lores which any army can take, such as the Primal Energy manifestation lore, which contains the Burning Head, Emerald Liveswarm, and Ravenak's Gnashing Jaws. Your wizards will gain access to be able to summon these to the battlefield. Those manifestations also have a health value and also a banishment value, which means you can either kill them or your wizards or priests are going to be able to remove them from the board. Some factions have unique manifestation laws, like the Lumineth Realm Lords that we've picked, and because the points for them are free, that does mean that bringing them to a game or battle is pretty much mandatory. Now, you don't have to get your faction-specific ones, and instead you can get one of the generic manifestation laws so that they're usable between different armies. However, you got to choose which manifestation law you want for your army on your army list. So let's put this all together and finalize our army list. We're going to choose our faction, which is Lumineth Realm Lords, and then we're going to choose our battle formation, which is the Alarith Temple. We're going to choose a hero to be our general, and then we're going to build our regiments led by heroes. We might take up to 1 regiment of renown, but probably not. We might take some auxiliaries in our list as well, but probably not. If we do have less auxiliaries than our opponent, then we're going to gain an additional command point each battle round. We're also going to list our faction terrain on our army list. We're going to choose 1 enhancement from each enhancement table available to our faction. We're going to pick 1 spell lore for our faction if we can. We're going to pick 1 prayer lore for our faction if we can. And we're going to choose our favorite manifestation lore that's available for our faction. And that's how you write an Age of Sigmar 4 army list. I hope this has been helpful. Obviously, there are loads more videos that I need to make about Age of Sigmar 4, and I hope you've enjoyed this journey with me. If there's anything I can do, please do leave them in the comments below. And thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. We've got a really active community talking about all the changes and everything they're excited about for Age of Sigmar 4. So if you want to join in, that'd be super cool. Thanks very much. I'll see you soon.